Welcome back. Threats of political violence have become a sad, frightening, and unfortunately regular part of our political landscape in the past few years. Yesterday, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal released portions of threatening voicemails she's received, painting a picture of the vitriol leveled against lawmakers and the reality of what she herself has been facing. We do want to warn you, this is disturbing. Take a listen.
You're going to get exactly what you deserve. Have a nice day. Why don't you guys go back to where you came from? None of these are damn citizens. Your day is coming. Damn, as soon as the president's installed, like on November 4th or 5th, we're coming after all you mother. You're going to be scrubbing floors for the rest of your life.
Congresswoman Jayapal published those voicemails following this story in the Washington Post, where she told the harrowing story of how a man stalked her home and harassed her before ultimately showing up at her house with a loaded gun. The man was arrested and prosecuted. Now, in addition to Congresswoman Jayapal, multiple lawmakers, primarily those who have spoken out against the former president, have reported receiving harassment and threats against them and their families. Democratic Congresswoman from Washington, Pramila Jayapal, joins me now to talk about all of this. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here to discuss this. We really appreciate it.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
And I am sorry that you have gone through all of that. We want to say that at the top. Tell us, why did you decide to reveal these threats? Why was it important for you to release those tapes for the public to hear what you had received on your voicemail?
Well, Kristen, it was in the context of the story that the Washington Post did about what happened to me. And again, what I felt is important is for people to understand the level of the violence, political rhetoric, racism and sexism that is underlying much of it, that at least comes towards me and others, particularly women of color that I know of. And to understand that these are not isolated incidents, that there's a direct line between the big lie, January 6th and the insurrection, and then what we are all experiencing, even in our homes at an individual level, and then what the impact is for our society and what is at stake. Because I think that is the most important thing for people to understand what has been unleashed and how important it is that we work quickly to try to restore ourselves to a society that can disagree about policy without threatening political violence, without attempting to steal elections, without having an insurrection on the Capitol. And so in the course of that story, the Washington Post reporter, who was really excellent, Ruby Kramer, asked me about other threats I've received, and I shared with her a whole series of voicemails, and we just released a few of them. This is normalized behavior that should not be normalized, and I think that's what's important for people to know.
And Congresswoman, you talk about January 6th. You, as you say, were there at the Capitol as the rioters stormed inside. And you have asked for more security in the wake of that. Can you update everyone? Where does that stand? Do you feel like you have the protection you need in order to do your job effectively?
Well, I'm not going to speak about my personal arrangements for obvious reasons, but I will say that I think what came to light to me is how much we do need to do as a Congress to assure member safety. And so I did take it upon myself to write a private letter. I don't want the details of that disclosed, again, for obvious reasons, to our leadership and to the Capitol Police and the Sergeant at Arms to help protect all members. This isn't just about me. This is about all of us being able to do our jobs. And I know from talking to members that this is a concern. And in fact, I've been responding to numerous texts ever since this happened, ever since I've spoken about this on a caucus call and put forward my very specific recommendations to members. I'm getting calls from members about very specific aspects of personal security as members attempt to update their own homes. And that's not really how it should work. And so I think I am really focused on trying to make sure that all of our caucus, all of our members, really all electeds, whatever party you're from, are protected. And some of it is security. and protection. Some of it is prevention and really making clear what the lines of communication are in the event of a serious threat.
Congresswoman, you talk about the fact that from your perspective, you think that women of color are disproportionately targeted. One of your colleagues, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, gave an interview to GQ magazine this week. I want to read you what she said and then get your reaction on the other side. She said, "I hold two contradictory things in my mind at the same time. One is just the relentless belief that anything is possible. But at the same time, my experience here has given me a front row seat to how deeply and unconsciously, as well as consciously, so many people in this country hate women, and they hate women of color. Realistically, I can't even tell you if I'm going to be alive in September." Congresswoman Jayapal, that is devastating to read. Can you react to it? Do you feel the same way?
Yes, I think that many of us feel the same way, and we've talked about it as women of color. If you listen to those voicemails, you will hear the difference. Not only do we get death threats and people, a man with a gun at my door, but also you get the racism and the sexism that underlies and propels a lot of the violence. The words that are used, the vitriol with which they are used, the sexism, xenophobia, and racism that is threaded through every single message that we receive is disgusting. It is not normal. It should not be allowed. It should not be encouraged, which is, of course, what the last president did.
Congresswoman,
and I think it's really important for people to understand that.
And before we run out of time, I do want to ask you about some of the rhetoric that we have heard from people in your own party right now against the backdrop of what is really an intensified, I think, political climate. The president's been criticized for referring to MAGA Republicans, as you know, as semi-fascists. Vice President Harris just told Chuck today that she believes that we have a quote-unquote activist court. And my question to you is about rhetoric broadly. Do you worry that that type of rhetoric, when you're talking about the president, the vice president, from some of our top officials, just kind of gins up controversy in what's an already volatile environment?
Kristen, I don't think they're equivalents. I don't think that calling insurrectionists semi-fascists is wrong. I really think that the president did a very important thing, which is to call out the seriousness of what the country is facing. And I think that is very different than people showing up at the Capitol to launch a violent insurrection and steal an election, or people showing up with guns at our doors. And I think that's true no matter what side of the party you're talking about. But I think we have to be careful about being so cautious to not call out what we see happening. And in fact, by doing that, allow it to happen. So I thank the president for his speech. I think it was a very important speech to come from the White House. And I think we have to be real about what we're confronting. Liz Cheney is being real. I think Democrats should be real.
All right. Congresswoman Jayapal, we really appreciate your joining us to discuss this really important topic, and we wish you safety ahead of November and beyond. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.